Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Big Apple Hockey. We have a special edition today because not only do I have a guest that's going to be with me the entire show, but also it's talking about prospects and a lot of things, the futures. We got to look at the futures market. I am looking for that close up button now. Uh, I have, of course, your host, Mark Williams, and there it is. And I wish I had one of these banners right now for my guest who's always frequenting with us, Mr. Statboy Steven of Rangers Review.
Yeah, good afternoon or good evening for me actually. But yeah, good to be back on your show to preview some World Junior stuff.
Yeah, and this is possibly the most unique World Juniors tournament there ever is going to be because it was supposed to be in December.
Yeah.
Some prospects that were supposed to be on there to basically announce themselves to the hockey world are not there. Some that are on there that could that or like Brennan Othmann, who wasn't going to play, now is playing. So
Yeah.
it's and you got the 22 World Juniors team skating on the same ice as the 23 World Juniors team. So it's a little bit confusing all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it is very confusing, and honestly, that confusion affected me too because I remember a couple of weeks ago talking to Brennan Othmann, and he mentioned that he was going to Calgary and Edmonton to join Team Canada. And initially, I thought, okay, that's going to be preparation for the 2023 World Juniors, which starts in December. The training camp was supposed to start July 23rd. And then he told me he was flying in August 1st. And I'm like, August 1st? That's after that camp's over. And then he told me, well, I'm actually joining the 2022 team. So Othmann, who wasn't on the team last December, has now made the team. And it's part because some players missed the tournament due to injury. Some players missed the tournament because simply they're just not released by their NHL team. You have players like Alexander Holtz and Simon Nemec of the New Jersey Devils, for instance, Shane Wright of the Seattle Kraken, Juraj Slavkovsky, and what's the other Slovak kid they drafted this year? I'm blanking on his name now. Filip Mesar.
Yeah.
Those players are just not being given permission by their NHL teams to play in the World Juniors. So
Right.
you see some new names, but you will also see a very unique World Juniors where some players have already turned 20 before the tournament starts because the age eligibility is still the same as it was last December. And for the first time in probably ever, players from 3 drafts who have already been picked will be eligible to play in this World Juniors. A guy like Adam Shakura, for instance, was drafted in 2022, but we also have Brennan Othmann from 2021, and then Will Cooley, Dylan Garonne, and Brett Berard from 2020. So it's a weird tournament in a lot of ways, but I'm really happy to have some decent hockey in August. It does help get through the month. And even though I know it'll never happen, I kind of wish deep down inside that they would permanently switch the World Juniors to August because it perfectly ties in with the NHL draft and would actually create a lot more buzz for both events. But it'll probably never happen.
You know what? I was actually going to ask you this question at the end. And it's one of those things that I have to tell you, I really almost agree with you on it 100% because also the NHL shutdown at Christmas time allows this to take center stage. And usually you end up getting a USA Canada game or something like that outdoor game back in, I want to say it was 2018 where Brady
2018.
when Brady shot that game winner.
2017-18, the World Juniors in Buffalo. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll probably not happen because players wouldn't be released by their teams to play, and because it's ahead of it's ahead of the season, and but let's not forget the World Juniors prior to the 05 to the 04-05 lockout was almost a non-existent tournament in terms of attention and broadcasting. The reason it became such a big deal is because in 2004, 2005, there was a full lockout. There was no NHL hockey for a whole year. And all of a sudden you get the World Juniors and you get kids like Crosby, who are going to be the first overall pick. Oh, and that's what created the buzz initially. And it just grew into its own thing, where people got excited for hockey on Christmas and New Year's.
Well, by the way, and if you haven't, you can also subscribe to Steven and Tyler over at Rangers Review. Just check them out right there. And also, Tyler does a Mets page. And by the way, Tyler, I got to tell you, let's go Mets. I added the F because I was going to hold off on that one for a little bit. Steven, we're going to go back to the World Juniors and talk more about that because this is always a great show. Looking ahead forward to the futures on everything. So you got to talk about the elephant in the room because back in December, Russia and we think Belarus was in that one, right? But Russia and Belarus are banned from all IHL tournaments until further notice because of the war in Ukraine.
Yep.
I mean, I don't particularly like it, but I understand it. I think you're punishing kids that have nothing to do with this. But so the first question is going to be, how is this going to affect Matvei Michkov, who's the projected number 2 overall pick next year?
Yeah, I don't think missing out on a World Juniors is going to affect him as much as some people think. There's the fact that he signed for 5 more years in the KHL. That is a big reason. He just sustained, I think, a shoulder injury. He was hit by Alexei Yemelin, who the NHL knows because he's the guy that catapulted Chris Kreider into Carey Price, and I will die on that hill.
Thank you, because people don't want to recognize that in the north of the border.
If you look at the picture of Yemelin's stick wrapped around Chris Kreider and you don't and you see how it bends, that's all the proof you need. So it's basic physics. Anyway, so yeah, he has an injury now, so he cannot play for the next 2 months. He's missing the World Junior, sure, but I think it's going to have a bigger impact on other Russian kids not playing, because especially for Russian kids, the World Juniors is a tournament where, and also the under-18s and the Linka Gretzky tournament, those are the tournaments where they can really showcase what they can do, because let's be honest, not every NHL team invests as heavily as the big teams when it comes to scouting in Russia. But I think Michkov will still go top 3. I think this might hurt his stock a little bit, but you have Connor Bedard is going to be the first overall pick next year. I think everyone agrees on that. But then again, we also all agreed on Shane Wright being the first overall pick. So let's see how the next 10 months go.
And look where he ended up.
Exactly. I don't think that's going to happen with Bedard, though. And then there's Adam Fantilli, who played for the Chicago Steel, who will now go to the University of Michigan. His older brother, Luca Fantilli, was actually invited by the Rangers to their prospect camp. So that's always an interesting little connection there. And so those will probably be goal 1 and 2. And then I think Michkov's going 3. And it will be mostly because he is tied to the KHL for, I think, 4 or 5 more years, because he's signed for that long. But Michkov is a top 3 talent in the draft. I would even argue he's better than Fantilli. He's a top 2 talent, but Fantilli might be a better pick for a small team. A team like the Arizona Coyotes might worry a little bit more about signing a Russian player down the line.
Now, I have to ask you 2 questions on that right there, which is, would that, if you're an NHL GM, put you in the shoes of, say, the Arizona Coyotes, who are going to probably have the worst record and finish with the 3rd overall pick, because that's the way it always works for Arizona.
Unless they have to forfeit their pick, of course.
Yeah, unless they have to forfeit it, of course. Would that deter you from drafting him, knowing that he's 5 years in the KHL? Or do you look at it and go, they're taking care of my development for me, if you will?
Yeah. Look, we saw a little bit of this going on with Kaprizov, where people were discussing, will he sign with the Minnesota Wild or will he not? By the time he signed with them, he was 23, and they go, well, he can just, he can just hold out and ask the Minnesota Wild to trade him to another team. But Russians don't really have the same leverage that college players have, for instance. College players after 4 years can go the unrestricted free agency route, whereas players from the KHL, if they've never come over yet, their rights are retained indefinitely by the NHL team. The New York Rangers still own the NHL rights to Mikhail Pashnin, who they drafted, I think, in 2009. So yeah, if you are a GM of a smaller team, I think it just depends on. It also depends on what your scouts are saying.
Mhm.
If your scouts are heavily invested in North American scouting, scouting the USHL, college, and juniors, and you look at a guy like Adam Fantilli, and you feel more comfortable with him, yeah, I get it. But at some point, you're gonna hit the mark where passing on Michkov is just not worth it anymore. Same thing with Shane Wright. If you look at the draft, the Montreal Canadiens went with Slavkovsky over Wright. Simple. The Devils, I think, were always going to go with a defenseman, so they went with Nemeth.
They got $15 million invested at center. It would have been a good idea to draft Shane Wright.
Yeah, and the Arizona Coyotes invested a lot of time and effort into looking into Logan Cooley, third overall. So if Shane Wright would have been picked first overall, there's a pretty good chance that Slavkovsky would have been fourth. Those two would have just swapped. It's not like it would have pushed everyone else in the top three down a spot. So it also depends on what the team is looking for. But yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be Bedard, Fantilli, and Michkov, in my opinion, 1, 2, and 3. But there are some really interesting players, as Eduard Chalet from Czechia, Dalibor Dvorsky from Slovakia, for instance. So yeah, it's gonna be fun to see where these guys end up in 10 months.
And I'm glad you answered the Shane Wright question I was going to save to ask you in a little bit, because obviously we're going to talk about some of the other effects of the Shane Wright slipping, namely one of those players that you mentioned that's playing. But we got to mention the guy you mentioned a couple different times right there, Connor Bedard. Will this just be the Connor Bedard show?
Well, I think Connor Bedard will definitely be an interesting player to watch because he's not draft eligible yet. He's going to be draft eligible next summer, so he's one of the youngest players in the tournament. But so I think a lot of attention will go to him. But if you look at Team Canada, they also have Mason McTavish, who, of course, played with Brennan Othmann in Switzerland for EHC Olten. And they have a couple of other players that are very interesting. We'll talk in a second about Dufour and Othmann playing on the same line. But I think Bedard, looking at Team Canada's games, he's going to get a lot of attention by opponents. And with the commentary for streams and for broadcasts being done by mostly Canadians, there will be a heavy focus on Connor Bedard. Yeah.
All right. And yeah, everybody's looking to see what he could be, because he is a generational talent in the making, and we can't wait, because if the appetizer was the games that he played. Now, by the way, those games don't count right now to this tournament from last year.
Yeah,
right?
So the games that were played in December for the tournament that has now been canceled don't count towards this tournament. They start with a clean slate. They start from scratch. However, the individual stats do count towards the player totals.
That makes no sense.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I think it was Craig Button who mentioned this on one of the podcasts he does. So if you look at a player's individual like career numbers, if he had 5 points in 2 games, those points do count towards his total, because officially the tournament is still counted as World Junior Championships canceled. It's just a different category.
All right. Well, that's the way they're going to say it. All right, fine. Because I mean, after all, Bedard was it a 4-goal game, or was it?
Yeah, I think Bedard had 5 points in 2 games, or
yeah, he was ridiculous. He was ridiculously good, and I know one of them was at least a hat trick. All right, so we're going to start looking into notable prospects from our area. Actually, I'm going to just tilt that just a little bit. Our area for the New York teams, and including one from the Devils, we're going to look at. So we're going to start with Will Cooley. What are your thoughts on Will Cooley?
Yeah, Will Cooley's one of the older players in this tournament, of course. It is his last time eligible for the tournament. And when this tournament was initially scheduled in December, his role was a bit smaller, but he had a bit of a breakout year in the OHL with the Windsor Spitfires. So they might rely a little bit on him for goal scoring, but yeah, it's good to see him get a shot. There's been some criticism when he was drafted by the Rangers about having low upside, but I think the Rangers have done a really good job the last three drafts actually, going after the players that might slide into your bottom six in the future. Because if there's one thing you need as a contending team is to develop those players yourself instead of overpaying either in a trade or in free agency. Will Cooley might have a different role in pro hockey than he will have in this tournament, though. I don't think he's going to be a top six player for Team Canada. There's just too much talent. But a good bottom six role with a couple of goals, yeah, I could definitely see that for him.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to be at the NHL level. And again, like you're saying bottom six. And again, there's lots of times where you get guys that are like those bottom six guys, the ones you just described, those guys that get slide in your bottom six, and then they end up moving up a little bit in your lineup. Jesper Fast is one that comes to mind. Carl Hagelin comes to mind. Will Cooley could be one of those guys that's just tough and grinds it out, and then who knows? He can explode after that.
Yeah, no. And if you need a guy to hold a spot in your top six for a couple of weeks while one of your other players comes back from injury, having a guy moving up in the lineup who has that scoring pedigree definitely helps.
Now, is that also Dryden Hunt? I forgot whether or not Dryden Hunt qualifies as that.
I don't want to. Let's not talk about Dryden Hunt.
All right. Sean, I got your question right here about Kravtsov. We're going to hold on to that and move on for a little bit. We'll actually, hey, Steven, here's a prospect we haven't talked about. Will Justin Huberdeau participate in the World Juniors? So, all right, let's go on to the next prospect for the New York Rangers. Dylan Garonne, the goaltender right here. I got his numbers: 34, 9 and 1, 2.16 goals against, and 9.25. How is he projecting, and is he gonna? What's his position going to be for Team Canada right now?
Yeah, I think for Team Canada, I don't see him as the starting goalie. I think Sebastian Cossa, who the Red Wings drafted in the first round last year, is going to be their starter, and their third goalie is Broku, undrafted goalie. But I think against a country like Latvia in the group stage, you might see Garonne get a game or two. But once the knockout stages start, once you get to like the quarterfinals, I don't expect Garonne to be their starting goalie. But it is a good experience for him. He had a really good season for Kamloops Blazers in the WHL. So this is a nice reward for him. He was also on the team back in December together with Cooley. So good to see that they stuck around. There are some players who, of course, have been dropped for several reasons, whether it's injuries or not being granted permission to go. So to see Garonne and Cooley being allowed by the Rangers to still go, that's I'm happy with that.
All right, and Ranger fans, this is one of the moments you've been waiting to hear because obviously Steven knows a lot about and extensively about this player, but Brennan Othmann is playing in his first World Juniors.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steven. Take it over from there. 50 goals. Those numbers say it all.
Yeah, man. Brennan Othmann had a season where he shut up all the critics. And he wasn't part of Team Canada in December. He was, and he's still eligible for the tournament in December, the 2023 World Juniors. So, but now with some absences in Team Canada, he was getting the call up. And yeah, 50 goals in the regular season. He had a really good playoff series too. I think in the second round against the Sioux Greyhounds, he had 12 points in 5 games. So yeah, it's when it matters most, he turns it up. And for him to get an invite for Team Canada for this tournament, I think he's earned that. He will play in the top 6 for sure. Probably with the New York Islanders prospect Dufour. He's the right winger on that line, and then down the middle, he might be playing with Connor Bedard. So we'll have to see what happens there, what the exact lines will be when the tournament starts. There have been a couple of pre-tournament games. Team Canada is playing a pre-tournament game tomorrow, so we might see some line combinations on the ice then. And then the tournament itself starts, of course, on Tuesday, with Canada playing its first game on Wednesday. So we may have to wait a couple more days before we can actually see Othmann in action. But I couldn't be happier. This kid has earned it all the way. He really worked hard. The Rangers really believe in this kid. What I loved is that the Rangers invited him to the 2022 draft to be there in person, to be like a representative of the team for a kid that was drafted in the first round in a year where everything was still virtual. So now he finally got his draft experience. It was also the draft where his best friend Shane Wright was picked. So overall, it was a really good summer for Brennan Othmann, and this just caps it off.
Yeah, didn't they also like give him that like you said just now, like being at the draft, but they also like donned the jersey and took the picture with him too at the draft, right?
Yeah, so that's the jersey that he was given by the Rangers when he was drafted. So when normally, you saw it with Kako, of course, in 2019, when a player is drafted in the first round, they go on stage, they get a jersey handed to them. That jersey that he would have been handed on stage in 2021, that's the jersey that he was sent. That's the one he was wearing with number 21 on the back. It always leads to interesting questions, like when Shakura was drafted by the Rangers this year, he had a jersey on with number 22, and people go, "Oh, number 22? Like, that's just the year he was drafted. It means nothing." Kako was never going to play with number 19.
No.
Shakura is probably not going to play with number 22 either. So, but yeah, it was a great experience for him, and just overall great summer for Brennan Othmann, capping off a ridiculously good season for the Flint Firebirds, where he had 47 more points than the second highest scorer on his team.
Which actually, that's what I was going to lead into the next question for you, because is Brennan Othmann basically one of those type of players you got to look at and go, look at the numbers he put up. You can see him in the Chiron below. And he's not playing with Shane Wright on his team like he did when he was with Team Canada and stuff. But this is now, so now is this finally where you can look at him and go, this kid is for real.
He carried his team in the OHL. And I know there are some graphs out there on social media that have his star probability going down, and we always joke about it and stuff. But this kid had a really good season on a team that he had to carry. He took this team on his back together with the goalie, Luke Haviland. If you talk to Othmann and you ask him who was the best player on your team this season, without hesitation, he will mention their goalie. Their goalie signed a contract with the Toronto Marlies, Luke Haviland. But Othmann, who was named captain midway through the season, is really the leader of the team. And I think that one year he played in Switzerland, where he played pro hockey during the pandemic, really helped. And he mentions it himself too. The stuff he learned, not just on the ice, but in the locker room, off the ice, just being part of a professional hockey organization, being in the locker room with guys who don't play hockey because they want to, but because they have to. They have to earn a living. They have to come home with a paycheck to support their kids, to pay their mortgages. It's a completely different mindset, and that really helped elevate Othmann's game when he went back to juniors. So I think Othmann, he silenced a lot of the critics, and the critics that are still out there should just shut up.
Oh yeah, well, of course, everybody's going to have critics. I mean, hell, well, we have our critics, and we can see all the people on Twitter just going on us.
The worst criticism I've heard is that his stats don't mean that much because he was born in January, so he's among the older players in his draft class. Imagine saying that about Gretzky. Imagine in the late 70s or in the mid 70s, Gretzky's playing in the OHL, and you go, well, I know he's putting up great numbers, but he was born in January.
All right, so everybody born in December is at a disadvantage. And oh, by the way, Marc Messier, same thing, because he was born a week after Wayne Gretzky. So come on, that's just ridiculous.
Anyway,
and I know you're grasping at straws because you're trying to figure out like what to say negatively about the kid. And I could go right back to your statement right there. He doesn't blink, and like you said, he had 47 more points next to the nearest guy to him, and he doesn't flinch. He just says, "It's our goalie. That's the best player on the team." So that's why with that, I'll take that kid any day of the week then.
Yeah.
So
look, and this by no means means he's a lock to be a 40-goal scorer in the NHL. I think we need to be realistic that we're talking about kids that are 18, 19 years old. It's really difficult to project. Do you think anyone, when Jesper Bratt was 19, thought, oh, he's going to be one of the top players for an NHL team one day?
No.
No. Henrik Lundqvist, the 7th overall pick, turning into a Hall of Fame goalie? No.
Nope.
Shesterkin winning a Vezina when he was drafted in the 4th round. There are players in the 1st round where you go, oh yeah, no, he's gonna be a star, and then it turns out to be Brett Connolly.
Yeah, or even Tim Connolly. So there's another one.
Yeah. So it's not always a guarantee, but look, I'll take whatever I can get out of a kid like Othmann. If he performs and he scores 50 goals, I'll take that as a win. And
exactly,
he's getting rewarded for it. When a guy like Wyatt Johnston, who was drafted by the Dallas Stars, is not on the team. So that's also an interesting omission, in my opinion, because looking at how he played in the OHL, I think he won Player of the Year. Mm-hmm. And not being included in Team Canada for this World Juniors team, what Brennan Othmann is, I don't know, maybe the talent evaluators for Hockey Canada know what they're talking about. And, they see a kid that carried his team, and they might want that to bring home a gold medal.
And as a kid who was cut from his senior team, his high school team in his senior year, which was my second season, I was cut. I was the one-man taxi squad, as I like to call it. And then I worked my way back onto the team, and I ended up having the final goal of the season, which tied the game for us against Massapequa, but instead we lost in that game later on.
If your team's final goal of the season is an equalizer, then you fucked up.
That was an equalizer, yeah. That's where it was. All right. So let's go to, because I have the poll up right here. What New York area draftee are you looking forward to watching the most? And right now, Brennan Othmann at 70%. We're going to go to the guy right now that's at number 2, his line mate, as you can see right there. Islander fans, you've been waiting for this one. William Dufour, 66 games, 56 goals, 60 assists. I believe he was the scoring leader of the QMHL. I forgot to take a look and make sure. But how is this kid looking?
Yeah, I think he won Player of the Year in that league too.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. This is just exciting, Ranger fans and Islander fans getting excited at the same moment when that line comes onto the ice. That's going to be something. I really like William Dufour. I think the Islanders, and I say this as a Rangers fan, I think the Islanders have a really good kid here. And you know how years ago we were talking about Kravtsov versus Wahlstrom?
Mm-hmm.
And that was because of where they were drafted. I think we might see a similar sort of rivalry between Othmann and Dufour, even though they were not, competing for the same draft spot. But them playing on the same line in World Juniors will definitely amplify that a little bit. But I'm really looking forward to see what this kid can do. He lit it up in the QMJHL. I think he's going to be a really good player for the Islanders. And it kind of sucks to say this, but the Islanders the last couple of years have gotten their hands on some players that I am really fond of, having watched them in juniors. Matt Barzal is one, because I'm also a Thunderbirds fan. But this kid is a guy that Islander fans should get excited about, for sure.
Now, Steven, I know you said as a Ranger fan, and Anthony uses that same term. He goes, I'm an Islander fan. And I usually say with Anthony, we're pundits now. We might have our fandom on this sleeve, but our opinions are on the other, and they don't have to line up against each other all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We could still just say it. It's all right. But by the way, so what's like one of the features about this kid's game that you could tell me?
He's just a really overall performer. There's I think he's sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I think his game is just going to translate really well to pro hockey. When you look at his stats too, 56 goals in 66 games, he definitely has that goal scoring touch. But just the way he plays, the way he commands respect on the ice, the way he, like Othmann, carries his team, he has the potential to be maybe not a leader in the locker room, but definitely a guy who pulls his team out of a slump when he hits the ice.
Which is a good thing. And do you think he makes the Islanders this year?
I I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure what their roster and their depth and their lines look like right now. But I think same with Othmann. He could make the team, but there's also really good possibility that that he will play. They'll have to go back to how old is DeFore? Is he
I
already
think he's
AHL?
1 year older. I had it right here a second ago. I'm sorry. I have it. William DeFore, and he is 2002. He just turned 20 back in
Yeah,
January.
yeah, he turned 20, so he's probably going to start in Bridgeport with the AHL affiliate, and then maybe work his way up. In terms of that trajectory, he's probably more comparable to Will Cooley because, of course, Othmann is not eligible to play in the AHL this upcoming season because he's too young. But yeah, I think in like a year or two, we might see Othmann and DeFore go head to head in the Ranger Islanders clash.
So I don't know if I've told you about this before, but in my junior season at Hicksville, I played with a kid by the name of Marty Hughes. Marty Hughes would go on. He was a great defenseman for us. He was probably the best player we had on that tournament. He would go on to play at Boston College. He even score a goal in the Frozen Four. They would be part of their national championship team, I believe in '98 it was. The reason why I'm saying is because it wasn't until like last year I found out his nephews were Jack and Quinn. And of course, I got to go to his other nephew. Looking at Luke Hughes, what do you think he's looking like and what could project at the NHL level?
Well, I think the Islanders, their defense, their blue line is going to shape up really nice in a couple of years. Of course, the guys that I already have on the team is going to make a big impact. But Luke Hughes and Simon Nemec on that blue line, man, that's gonna be tough to watch as a fan of a team in the Metropolitan Division.
Mm-hmm.
That pairing has all the potential in the world. And yeah, the Devils they went with Luke Hughes with a top 5 pick. Now they went with Simon Nemec, second overall. I think they just really know what they want out of their players. Of course, they already have Hischier and Jack Hughes down the middle, up front. They have Jesper Brod, of course, on the wing. Sharon Govich is playing decent for them. They have Jesper Boqvist. So going with Luke Hughes and then Simon Nemec, yeah, I kind of get that. But with defensemen, it could take a little longer. But this kid, you can see it on screen, 39 points in 41 games in college for the University of Michigan. Really strong first season. But we also have to remember that the University of Michigan is a powerhouse in college hockey. So it is a little bit easier to play with the players that are on that team. But yeah, Luke Hughes is going to be a big guy for the Devils.
And going back to one more player for the New York Rangers, one guy that we've talked about extensively for the last 2 years, talking together, is Brett Berard, who he's looking like he's going to be a good player. Look at his numbers from Providence College. I got his bio clip that's right over here, just so everybody can see that. Steven, so what can you tell me about Brett Berard?
Yeah, Berard is a 5th overall pick in 2020. He should have been drafted higher. Same with William DeFore. They were both 5th rounders in 2020, but they have already exceeded their draft stock. Berard has had a really good years in Providence already in his first 2 seasons. Played on Team USA that won gold at the World Juniors in 2021, and was actually the catalyst of that team. I think he played with Farinacci and Bobby Brink on the 3rd line for them. This time, I could see him definitely in the top 6. His versatility definitely helps. He can play left wing or right wing. He has a high motor, high energy. He always compares himself to Brandon Gallagher, but I think he has slightly better hands than Brandon Gallagher. So seeing that in the World Juniors, I think when Team USA has their backs up against the wall, Brett Berard is a guy that can really shine. With ice in front of him, he can really make things happen. And he's going to be one of the more experienced guys on this team, even though he hasn't turned 20 yet. He's only turning 20, I think, later this month. I forget the exact date, but
no, I got it for you right here. I could just go right back to not that one. That one. The 9th,
Oh,
next month.
sorry, September 9th. Yeah. So back in 2020, he was one of the youngest players in his draft class. This year we got another kid, youngest player in his draft class, Adam Shakura. So it's always interesting to see how those kids do because they are a year younger than those other guys. And talking to a guy like Brett Berard in the past, it's kind of an advantage because you usually go up against guys that are maybe 6-7 months older, and it doesn't sound like much, but when you were 12, 13, 14 years old, that 6-7 months is huge. So you have to play a different style. You have to put in more effort to keep up with kids that are a little bigger, a little bit more physical. And Brett Berard has really done everything I could have asked for from a 5th-round pick. He's going back to college to play with his younger brother, Brady Berard, who was also invited by the Rangers to their prospect camp. But 2023, he'll probably turn pro. And he's a guy that I could see make the jump from college straight to the NHL.
Wow. All right. That's high praise. I mean, obviously, the Rangers are going to have some roster questions coming up.
Of course.
In 2023 and in 2024. I mean, more on that later when we do some Q&A. And that's a pretty high praise, and that's great to hear. What other North American prospect really interests you the most?
What other North American prospect interests me? Logan Stankoven of the Kamloops Blazers, who was drafted by the Dallas Stars. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I'm also looking forward to watching Mason McTavish. Because I watched him when he was playing in Switzerland with Brennan Othmann. And then on Team USA, just the guys, like Logan Cooley, the guys that were drafted this year. I just want to see how they do in general, and how that team does. It's just Frank Nazar, who was drafted by the Chicago Blackhawks, for instance. I think Team USA has some really interesting players to focus on. Their goaltending, 3 undrafted players, so that's pretty rare for Team USA in the World Juniors. Guys like Thomas Bordeleau of the San Jose Sharks, Carter Mazur of the Detroit Red Wings, Sasha Pastujov of the Anaheim Ducks, who the Rangers passed on last year in the 3rd round. That'll be it for North America. And then European prospects, of course, I'm definitely paying attention to Adam Shakura, the 2nd-round pick for the Rangers.
And we're getting more to him in a second.
But also guys like Dalibor Dvorsky on Team Slovakia. He's draft eligible for next year's. He has the potential to be a top 5 pick in next year's draft. Aaron Kiviharju. He's not playing in this tournament yet, but he's a player that played in the Linka Gretzky tournament last week. I was kind of hoping he would be playing, but for Team Finland, Joachim Kimmel and Brad Lambert, who were drafted by the Nashville Predators and Winnipeg Jets in this last draft in the 1st round, are going to be interesting. And for the Islanders, of course, Aatu Räty and Matias Rajaniemi are playing for Team Finland as well. So keep an eye on those two if you are an Islanders fan.
Oh, I thanks, because I didn't know Räty was playing. Like I was trying to look for him and I couldn't find it because, as we talked about beforehand, these rosters. And you might as well have had Lou Lamoriello trying to say who was on their rosters.
Yeah, they're hard to find. So what I usually do, I go to Elite Prospects and I just open up all the rosters, and it has the little NHL logos next to their name if their NHL rights belong to a team. So if I look at Team Finland here, you have Oliver Kapanen of the Montreal Canadiens, Kasper Simontaival of the LA Kings, and then there's 3 Islanders actually. There's Matias Rajaniemi, Eetu Liukas, and Aatu Räty. Yeah. So Team Finland, if you are an Islanders fan, Team Finland's definitely the team to watch.
And I know you were watching the other day when I did pronounce Aatu Räty right, and it's also because listening to you. But it's also like then at the NHL level, like they were calling him Roddy last year, and I'm like, tell me what it is.
Look, I know some European names are really difficult for announcers, but look, it's either do it all right or just make it all up.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
if you go through the effort to pronounce Oliver Shillington's name right,
Yeah.
which is not easy because it starts with a K, so it makes no sense to say Shillington.
Yeah, I messed that up last week when we were talking about that.
Yeah, if you go through the effort as an announcer to do that right, then you should go through the effort to pronounce all the names correctly. And
Yeah.
I know it's difficult, but you know, in the Netherlands we don't say McDavid, we still say McDavid. We don't pronounce it the Dutch way. We still say McDavid.
Yeah.
It's
And
just
again, that's just stuff you have to look at. And just get it right. But then again, remember for the Rangers years ago and the Ottawa Senators, Stanislav Netskash, I believe his name was spelled Necker. And you're like, that, how the hell did that come? The Netskash. But all right.
Nech Nechkash, yeah.
Yeah.
That and you know that I don't know that's a difficult name, but look, if Sam Rosen can say Philip Hedel,
Yeah. Then
I
yeah,
mean
figure it all out right there.
you can figure out the other names.
I did have a couple questions because one of the ones I wanted to make sure I highlighted for you before we get to the European players that we have mentioned. But Brock Faber was one of the ones that Guntone Grandy is mentioning. He was in the.
Yeah, your microphone just muted.
I don't understand why he keeps on muting me right now. But Brock Faber was in the Kevin Fiala trade. So, what can you tell me about him?
Yeah, Brock Faber, you know, was a really good prospect. When I'm not going to say he's as good as Adam Fox, but he has that type of hype. You know, he's a player that forced his way to his hometown team, played in college, really exceeded expectations. Um, when he was traded to the Minnesota Wild in the Kevin Fiala trade, immediately a picture showed up of him attending a Minnesota Wild game on the glass as a kid in like these old Wild jerseys with like the red.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible jerseys, by the way. Nothing. I love the Minnesota Wild. I've been to Minnesota. It's a beautiful arena. Their fan base is amazing, but they need to get rid of every little smidge of red in their jerseys. It's a terrible combination. Just dark green and cream. That's all the colors you need in your jersey. Anyway, rant over. Brock Faber for the Minnesota Wild is going to be great, but yeah, he's a guy that he was included in the Fiala trade for two reasons, because Fiala had to return some decent assets, but also the LA Kings don't really need another defenseman.
Yeah,
you know, their blue line, they have some really good players on there already, so it made sense for them. But yeah, Brock Faber, if you are a Minnesota Wild fan, definitely exciting times.
and a couple people showering some hellos to you, so I have to flash those out. So
Good afternoon, everyone.
I mean, after all, it's you got comments from Twitch. I haven't even gotten people to. Well, I got another comment from Twitch. Actually, Sean was my first Twitch follower that we had on here. But we're gonna get back to that question in a little bit, Sean. First, we got a couple more prospects we got to go through because you mentioned him a couple times. And by the way, when the Rangers drafted him, I had to double check and make sure he wasn't related to Peter. Mm-hmm. But Adam Shakura. Those are his numbers right there. What do you got for me? Also, let me fix the word games. It was all right. Go ahead, Steven.
Adam Shakura from Slovakia. I mean, when I was watching the draft this year, it doesn't happen often when you get to the second round that your team drafts a player that you've been eyeing. When the second round started, I had a list of about 5 or 6 players that I was really excited about. David Goyette, who went to the Seattle Kraken. Jagger Firkus, who also went to Seattle Kraken. Maybe I should become a Seattle Kraken fan, because they a couple of years ago, the Carolina Hurricanes would always go after players that I was excited about in the draft. And we're talking about like second, third, fourth round picks. But this year, the Seattle Kraken, they ended up with Shane Wright, Jagger Firkus, and David Goyette. Man, it's hard not to become a fan of them now. and I already have connections to Seattle. I have friends who live there, so I don't know. Maybe if I have to pick a West Coast team or Western Conference team, I'll go with that one. But yeah, the Rangers 63rd overall. Was it 65th overall?
I double checked that one. I think you're right about that.
I think it was 63rd overall. Go with Adam Shakura, who I did not expect because the Rangers have been moving away from drafting European kids a little bit. You know, only had 2 last year. They only had Shakura this year. And, you know, I couldn't be happier. This kid, 17 years old, only turns 18 on September 7th. Youngest player drafted in his draft class. And just for Team Slovakia, he played in the under 18s. Then he played for the men's team in the World Championships at age 17. So there's this whole new generation of Slovak players. You have Slavkovsky, you have Nemec, you have Mešar, and now Shakura. Then next year you have Dalibor Dvorsky. They just have a really good generation. And to get one of these players is very exciting. And in a way, he reminds me a lot of Brad Berard. But I think Shakura's game without the puck is better. He already plays the penalty kill in professional hockey in Slovakia, which is very impressive for a 17-year-old. And he just holds up really well going up against grown men. And the same argument can be made for Shakura as I made for Othmann. Othmann played in Switzerland when he was 17, and it really helped. It really helped his game out a lot. You're going up against players that don't just play because they want to. They play because they have to. They've grown into their bodies. You know, it's a completely different mindset on the ice, in the locker room, pre-game, at practice, even post-game. It's just a whole different vibe. So I'm personally very happy that he's staying in Slovakia for another year. The Rangers signed him to a contract, but because of the transfer agreement with the IIHF, he's not eligible to play in Hartford this season because he was drafted outside the first round. So yeah, for him to go back to Slovakia for another year, I think it's good for him. But to see him on this team, Slovakia, in the World Juniors, it's going to be exciting. He was picked as one of the alternate captains for an under-20 team at age 17. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it tells you he's got it up here. And unlike, then again, everybody thought Elias Anderson was going to be future captain material because he threw his silver medal away.
Yeah, see, I don't think the whole silver medal tossing was going to have a positive or negative impact. It was going to be judged based on his career anyway. If Elias Anderson turned into a 30-goal, 70-point player, everyone would be looking back at that moment and praise him for it.
I got to agree with you. It's something you would interpret, and the way that I'm interpreting that, it was obviously the negative side. Yeah, I didn't like it when it happened, and I don't like it now because right now the way his career is playing out is
and he was suspended for that. But there was another there were 2 other Swedish players that were suspended for the same thing, Elias Pettersson and Rasmus Dahlin. Yet we never hear about that.
Yeah, no. But right about that one. Now, you got one more prospect that we had listed for the European ones, another Rangers prospect, and everybody bear with me. I'm going to try to get this right.
Is this the Czech? Oh, yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay. Yaroslav Shemler?
No, I mean,
Hemler?
It's really difficult to pronounce. It's Yaroslav Chmelars.
All right. So I'm just going to say Yaroslav. Steven's going to take it over from there.
So, try to say Melars. Yeah, and then try to put the CH of Hedel in front of it. Chmelars. Yeah, never mind. It's a really difficult name to pronounce.
For God, it was. I was looking at it going, "Oh, geez, is that going to be a sh or a?"
Yeah.
So
when I spoke to this kid, when I interviewed him, I actually had him pronounce it on video, so I could cut that and share it on Twitter just so I could explain to people how to pronounce his name, because it is really difficult. But this kid, yeah, bit of a surprise that he made the team for Czechia under 20. Last year, he was one of the 3 final cuts. He made his way all the way to Edmonton with Czechia under 20, played in some pre-tournament games, and then prior to game 1, they had to cut 3 more players, and he was one of them. So he made his way all the way to Edmonton, but didn't get to play in the actual tournament. This time he will. He made the team. He's playing on the second line in their pre-tournament games. This kid had a really weird career trajectory. He was born in the Czech Republic. Age 14, he moved to Finland with his dad because his dad thought that was the best trajectory for his career. So his dad quit his job, moved to Finland with him. He played hockey there. Was invited to some tournaments up in Canada. He's played at age 14 a tournament in Windsor, Ontario, and then worked his way up through the Finnish teams. Played for Jokerit's under 20 team this past season, and this summer after this tournament, he'll be staying in North America because he will be joining Brett Berard in Providence to play for the Friars in college.
Wow, that's amazing.
So yeah, it's a pretty crazy. It's been a pretty crazy 4 or 5 years for this kid, and you know he's a guy that doesn't mind throwing the body around in the corners, you know, and playing on smaller rinks in Finland compared to the Czech Republic definitely helped his game in that regard. You know, it helped him mold his game into that to make it fit. And now he's going to have a similar adjustment going to college. But I think for the Czech team, this kid's not going to be the guy that scores like 5 or 6 goals in the group stage. But he plays on a line with what I consider the best name in hockey right now. It's the guy named Ivan. No joke. His first name, his second name, and his last name are all Ivan.
You ever watch Letterkenny?
No.
That's on Hulu. It's actually pretty good. They got a character. His name is Jean-Jacques Francois Jean-Jacques. He's Frankie JJ Frankie JJ is what they shorten his name.
JJ Frankie JJ. All right. No, but look, this kid is. It's just going to be exciting to have, and especially for Ranger fans. You know, we have 3 guys on Team Canada. We have Berard on Team USA. We have this kid on the Czech Republic. Czechia. Adam Shakura on Slovakia, and then Kalle Väisänen on Team Finland. Unless Sweden wins the gold, we're going to be celebrating a Rangers prospect winning gold.
I love it.
So,
can't say enough for that. That's because winning these tournaments, it does help towards your development, and also losing in these tournaments helps towards your development.
I think just playing in these tournaments means a lot to these kids, because we have to remember for 75% of these kids, this will be the highlight of their career. This will be the most important tournament some of these kids will ever play. Because, of course, we talk about kids like Othmann, and when we look back on previous tournaments, we talk about Kako, we talk about Lafreniere, we talk about Jack Hughes, and we talk about Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon. But there are a lot of players on those teams for whom this will be their big moment. A guy like Danny Cristo. Do you remember him? He played. Yep. Played for Team USA with Chris Kreider and Derek Stepan when they won the gold. That's probably the highlight of his career. And for a lot of the players in this tournament this year, it'll be the highlight of their career. So, yeah, it's great for us to watch, but yeah, it means a lot to these kids as well.
See, I forgot who the Rangers traded to get Danny Cristo, because back when I used to do We Are Blue Shirt Nation podcast with Scott from We Are Blue Shirt Nation, you mentioned Danny Cristo, and every time he was asking about Danny Cristo, my first words were, all right, well, PA Parento is not on this team anymore, so I don't have to worry about that. And that was just always what I went back to, because Cristo, unfortunately, I think he played 1 game with the Rangers. I don't think he ever made it.
I think so. He was traded for Christian Thomas, by the way.
That was it. Okay.
He played for the Wolfpack, 65 games, 72 games. Never played a game for the Rangers. Christian Thomas did, though. The player we traded him for. Played I think 1 or 2 games for the Rangers. But This tournament's fun for us, but I'm just looking forward to see who's going to end up with the gold medal. If I have to pick a team, I will never root for this team because I just cannot stand them. But I'll root for the 3 players on that team. I hope Othmann, Cooley, and Garonne win the gold because Cooley and Garonne, it's their last chance. Berard already has a gold medal. Adam Shakura still has 2 chances after this. And Chmelars and Väisänen can still play in December too. So the only prospects for the Rangers who will get their last chance at a gold medal are Garonne and Cooley.
And because I was a little bit surprised I didn't get a chance to do extensive research, everybody, but I was able to look at Team USA. This is one of the first times in a while you look at the Team USA goaltending. None of them are drafted. None of them are, I don't know if they're projected to be drafted. And it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for Team USA. They're not as loaded as they were 2 years ago when they still had all the guys that went to Michigan, Matty Beniers and all them. But
so are you looking at the 3 goalies there?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about the first 2, but I think the third one's okay.
Oh, wait, who's the third one? I went to the Team USA one. So wait, hold on. Elite prospects. Let's go. Rats.
I'm not sure about
Wait, who's the third one?
No. So if you look at the 3 names there.
Okay, trying to get there. This is riveting TV right now for everybody.
It's really ruining my joke, man. Jesus.
I know it's. Come on. All right, hold on. I'll get there. Oh, damn it. All right, 22. I went to the Team USA roster again. So
okay. You see 3 goalies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have Keppel, Barreto, and the third one. I'm not sure about the.
Oh, he's pretty okay. Oh, that's.
I'm not sure about the first.
The name is Andrew Oki. Yeah. See, you know what? It took me a second to get there, and then the worst part is, the payoff of that was pretty good.
It's okay. It's okay. You know,
at by least the way, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's a big boy.
At least there's no Justin on that team, so we're good.
No, there isn't a Justin. There is definitely no Justins on there. And you know what? Other guys that I kind of look at is Caden Gooley for Team Canada. I believe he's Canada's captain. They've been waiting on him. They've been talking about him for a while in Montreal. I can't wait to see that kid when he makes the NHL, makes the jump. Hopefully his success carries over. But let's get to some of these other ones. Just for some of these comments, Sean, I still got yours. But first, let's just stick with this. Gary is saying Bedard should go first, but some scouts are suggesting top 3 because first overall at 5'9", who didn't play center at the last junior tournament. But what do you think?
Yeah, I'm getting really sick and tired of people looking at someone's. I don't know. There's not aimed at Gary, by the way, but I'm just getting sick and tired of people looking at someone's bio page, and the moment someone's a hair under 6 foot, it's like, oh, it's not good enough. It's nonsense. The 80s are over. The Berlin Wall is down. You know, the Soviet Union has collapsed. Players under 6 foot can be successful in the NHL.
Very successful. I mean, we've seen it already the last few years, but even back then, I mean, Marty St. Louis, I understand he's a special type of player, but he wasn't even 6 foot. I mean, Theo Fleury was another one, but the size gap has kind of gone down a little bit. Yes, size is still an advantage, but it's not what it was because the game is made now for the skill players to really show off their stuff.
Sidney Crosby's 5'11", by the way.
Okay. Well, that 2 inches really matters. Now, on the other hand,
that's what she said.
Good timing on that one, Steven. Good timing on that one. And Granny's saying it'll be great for the kids to get used to the big ice. And yes, that's always, I've played on the big ice before. I didn't notice it as much when I first started.
Wait. What does he mean by big ice?
Oh, that's right. This isn't going to be international ice. It's going to be NHL ice, right?
I think they're playing in Edmonton. They're playing at Rogers Arena.
NHL ice, right?
I'm pretty sure they play on North American sized rings. Yeah.
All right. So that goes with some of these. We mentioned that Kirill was a 5th round pick, but that was because of what happened with him having 5 years of KHL service that was there. Johnny Red's asking, what do you think about the new European scout for the Rangers?
Oh, the director of European scouting. Yeah, so he worked with John Lilly for the Toronto Maple Leafs for many years, and it's interesting to see that a lot of people were like, "Oh, Jeff Gorton hired Nick Bobroff in Montreal again," like they're just buddies. This is what happens everywhere. Look at the Rangers. John Lilly comes over from the Maple Leafs, and he brings over the guy that he worked with. I mean, this really shouldn't be a surprise. Teams, general managers, and presidents, they go with players that they're familiar with. They go with what's the word?
Familiar.
They go with coaches and scouts, etc., that they're familiar with. This is nothing new. But this guy, the Rangers are investing in their European scouting after they got rid of Bobroff. I think it's good. I think a team like the Rangers should always invest in scouting everywhere. The Red Wings, look, I know Ranger fans have a little bit of a sour taste with European scouting because we've had some duds over the years. Elias Anderson is the most prominent one, but European scouting also got us Igor Shesterkin.
That's right.
It also got us Philip Hedl.
That's right too.
And now it got us Adam Shakura.
And let's also not forget over the years, we said before, Carl Hagelin,
Jesper Fast,
that they drafted. Never mind players that they signed like Matt Zuccarello. So
Artem Anisimov is another one. The Rangers should always invest heavily in scouting because the Red Wings are doing it. Why are the Red Wings doing it? Because they're one of the biggest teams in the NHL, but they invest heavily on scouting in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
They've been drafting more Swedish players than any other team.
And they've been doing that for the last 20 years.
And that's a team that's run by Steve Yzerman, the guy that everyone praises. So, I'm glad the Rangers are restoring that scouting department a little bit. Of course, the scouts were still there. We still have Mikko Eloranta in Sweden, Patrick Kjellberg Eloranta in Finland, Patrick Kjellberg in Sweden, and then Otto Hašák and Jan Gadošik in Czechia and Slovakia. And then I think Jan Kuznetsov, who's our scout in Russia. So the scouts were still there, and now they just hired a new director of European scouting. So it's just to restore that balance in the organization a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking about one of those guys, I got 2 questions for you. One from Sean Harold, who I've been holding on to his question for a while, and Arman, who did it. They're basically the same question. I'm going to flash both of them for you, though. But is there any update on Kravtsov, and do you think he's a lock for the Rangers? And Arman is saying everyone is penciling in Kravtsov into the middle 6. Has he agreed to even play for the Rangers? By the way, he has agreed. He's got a 1-year deal with the New York Rangers, and it's a one-way deal. That's it. So where do you think Kravtsov fits?
Yeah, Vitaly Kravtsov signed a 1-year extension with the Rangers. $75,000 signing bonus, $800,000 salary. So one-way contract, which means he will get paid the salary whether he's in Hartford or in New York. But he's also 3 years removed from his entry-level contract, so he's not waiver exempt anymore. So he has to pass through waivers. And I think that's the reason he negotiated in the first place. If he was still waiver eligible, if he was still waiver exempt, it may have complicated negotiations a little bit because he just doesn't want to play in Hartford. He doesn't mind playing for the Rangers. He just doesn't want to play in Hartford. I don't know what happened in Hartford. I don't know what the reason behind it is. I have some theories that I won't share on air, but I think Kravtsov will play for the Rangers this season. And it's not like Kravtsov needs the Rangers it's also the other way around. The Rangers need Kravtsov too. You know, they traded away Buchnevich. They moved on from Andrew Copp. Someone's gonna have to fill that top 9 spot on the right wing, and it's not gonna be Julien Gauthier. It's just not working for him.
No.
Dryden Hunt should. I mean, we saw Dryden Hunt in the top 6 playing on Panarin's line. Quick detour here, but when I see people complaining about Panarin being on the decline and not mention the fact that he was playing with Dryden Hunt for 75% of the season, yeah, maybe that had something to do with it, that he wasn't producing at even strength.
All right. By the way, I just want to address that. And I got to look right to the camera on this one. Artemi Panarin's on the decline. He had 96 points, which was, I believe, a career high last year. Stop.
Yeah. So I'll say he was on pace for 113 in year 1 and 2 with the Rangers, but shortened seasons ruined that.
Mm-hmm.
But still, no player in the salary cap era, aside from Jaromir Jagr, has put up more points in a single season than Artemi Panarin this past season. 96 points is the 11th highest in franchise history, by the way.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's almost 100 years.
Yeah. Could you improve that line? Yes. And we all have our own theories on how to improve it. We'll go to that in a minute.
We have improved it. We put Trocheck on the line instead of Ryan Strome. So,
you know what, though? I think, though, if you put, say, Kravtsov on the right and you get a shoot first center like Filipino in there, maybe that might offset things, and maybe Kakko's game better reflects with Trocheck. That's just a theory I have.
And that's possible. And if you put Lafreniere on the top line with Zibanejad and Kreider, then Kakko slides into the second line with Trocheck and Panarin, and then your third line could be Gaudreau, Hedl, Kravtsov. It can work. I definitely think the Rangers need Kravtsov as much as Kravtsov needs the Rangers. So I do think he's going to play for this team. I just really hope this fan base doesn't start booing him every time he touches the puck at Madison Square Garden.
See, I think preseason is going to help that out. Because let's say he comes in, has a strong preseason, has a nifty goal like he had against the one at Bridgeport against the Islanders. That was his only goal of the preseason last year, that he one-timed it from the right wing circle. I mean, that's one of those things that you can look at him and the fans can then see the potential and go, okay, ease up on this guy. I don't think they're gonna boo him. I don't. It's stupid to boo him. He's wearing your jersey. Don't boo him right now. I mean, he's not Tony DeAngelo. Tony DeAngelo was a different beast altogether. But yeah, no, don't just let it play out with Kravtsov. There's more that's got to be played out. Because the other thing is, if Kravtsov is still a good player and he's just not a fit here, you move him to a different team. You get somebody else that's not fitting in somewhere else. And you never know. That could work out pretty well. It worked out for, say, JP Dumont, a former Islander draft pick that ended up going to Chicago, or was it Buffalo that he went and then had a pretty good career for a little bit. But it's just there's lots of players. I picked the one out of the blue, but there's lots of players that happened with.
Yeah, I mean, RJ Umberger, Pierre Parenteau, Dale Weiss.
Yeah,
there are players who just have a better career elsewhere. But yeah, with Kravtsov, the Rangers have invested in him with a contract. Now they should invest in him with confidence and give the kid a shot. Because if he doesn't make it, you still want to get some value for him in a trade. That's a really good point.
And if I recall correctly, right now he's 22 years old, 23 years old.
He was born in 1999.
Right, so 23 years old right now to start the season.
He's turning 23 in December.
Okay, so he's one of those December babies that is at such a disadvantage.
He's a couple months younger than Filipino.
All right. So again, but with that's another thing. You're talking about a guy that's starting to come into his prime. That's why I try to caution Ranger fans all the time, Steven, about get rid of Kakko, he's a bust. He's not even 24 yet. And then you trade the guy, and then he's you get a guy like Todd Bertuzzi who then explodes, has 40 goal seasons, and let's just say one incident that really changed around his career forever, as well as obviously Stephen Morris. It's just you don't want to give up on. I'd rather give up on a prospect a year too late than a year too early.
Yeah, and like you said, this kid is 22. Zuccarello didn't join the Rangers until he was 23.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't become an NHL regular until he was 26.
And a matter of fact, Carey Price kept shutting out the Rangers for so long at one point that Zuccarello was the answer to a trivia question. Who was the last Ranger? I think it was in 2012. It was the last Ranger to score a goal on Carey Price. It was Matt Zuccarello.
So I quickly want to touch on what Mike is saying here, because I know there's always questions about this, the one-way deal thing. Waiver eligibility is not connected to the type of contract a player has. One-way or two-way contracts just means what money does the player get paid when he's in the minors. If a player is on a one-way deal, he gets the same amount of money in the AHL as he does in the NHL. If it's a two-way deal, he gets a lower salary in the AHL.
All right, so the Rangers actually can send him down.
Well, he has to go through waivers, but not because of his contract. The waiver eligibility is based on the numbers of years you are removed from signing your first contract. And if for the purpose of signing your contract, you are 20 years old or 19 years old, 3 years after signing your ELC, you have to pass through waivers. So Kravtsov is now 3 years removed from signing his contract. That makes him waiver eligible. And there's actually a player in the organization that's a perfect example of this. Gustav Rydahl, that we signed from Sweden. He signed a one-way deal, but he's still waiver exempt because it's his first year.
What was his name again, by the way?
Gustav Rydahl. He's a center.
That's another thing that's great about Steven. Those names sound better when he pronounces them.
And I'm not even from Sweden. I'm pretty sure some Swedes can pronounce it even better than I can. So,
oh yeah, but I was just putting up there for that. But by the way, Julian's asking this: what do you guys think of the Rangers signing Jimmy Vesey potentially, albeit on a 1-year deal and a fourth line role? I'm thinking here we go again, and he's going to be afraid of Schneider.
Oh, I think he's referring to the Rangers Devils game last season.
Oh, that's right. Schneider drilled him.
Look, I made a joke about this on Twitter that, is everyone ready to see Jimmy Vesey in the top 6 over Alexis Lafreniere? Obviously, I was joking. Jimmy Vesey is signing with the Rangers to hopefully earn a spot on the fourth line. He's going to have to compete with Ryan Reeves, Gustav Rydahl, Ryan Carpenter, Julien Gauthier, and Dryden Hunt. So I don't see him beating out 4 of those players to get on the fourth line. At best, he's going to be a 13th forward. He's probably going to be sent down to Hartford.
Yeah, and then called up in case if there's injury or anything else. At least you got
better. There
are experience.
There are worse scenarios than Jimmy Vesey to have as a call up in your system. And we've talked about bringing back former players. We've talked about how rare the occurrences are of a player actually being more successful in his second stint than in his first stint. Jimmy Vesey is not going to be that. Jimmy Vesey had his best seasons at the start of his career, and he hasn't really developed the way everyone would have hoped. But to have someone that already knows the organization, that already knows everything, that has lived in New York before, to have a guy like that compete for a fourth line spot is not the worst thing in the world.
I think back when I first started this channel in 2021 or even 2020, I think it was, where it was even before that, there was name the 9 players that had hat tricks or something like that. That was a trivia question I think I had for Vilk. And obviously D'Angelo, Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider, Stepan, but there was, and Jimmy Vesey was in there because he had 1 hat trick, and so was Matt Pumple. That was the other one that was kind of out of nowhere.
Matt Pumple at the time was the first waiver pickup for the Rangers to score a hat trick in 15 years.
Wow. Okay, so that was 2017. 15 years. Jeez.
This, by the way, the answer to this question made me fall in love with my fiance because she knew it right away.
Wow. All right.
I mentioned this to her. It was like one of our first meetings. I mentioned this, and she, within a second, came back with the answer to this. So who was prior to Matt Pumple, the last waiver?
Prior to Matt Pumple, it would have to be somebody from 2002. So that's where I'm going at with that. It's not a defenseman. I already know that because the last defenseman to have a hat trick before that, damn it. That was like 30 years before that. That was around like when I was born. So we have, I'm trying to go as fast as I can with this. Going with the 2002 team, Holik Messier. Janovic?
No, he was actually acquired in a trade. It's Jeff Thomas.
Jeff Thomas. Oh my God. See, I love these trips around memory lane where it's just like, wait, what?
Yeah. Matt Pumple also became the first player to record a point on his first game, the first waiver pickup for the Rangers since Bernie Joffrion in 1966.
Wow. Wow,
those are one of my first. Those were like what among the first tweets when I first created my Twitter account. By the way, and those tweets back then got like 1 or 2 likes because they only had like 5 followers. I should revisit my oldest tweets and just start retweeting them.
Also, do you watch the trade trees from Steve Dangle?
Oh yes. I'm so happy he touched on the Yaroslav Halak one.
Thank you, because I was about to say that one is tailor-made for Statboy Steven.
I actually tweeted about that a couple of weeks ago. That Igor Shesterkin was drafted with a pick that was traded for Yaroslav Halak,
and from the New York Islanders.
It was initially a Chicago Blackhawks pick that went to the Islanders, and then the Islanders traded it to Washington for Halak, and then Washington traded it to the Rangers to trade up. They traded 2 4th-round picks for a 3rd-round pick to trade up in the 2014 draft. So Shesterkin was drafted with a pick that was also traded for Yaroslav Halak, who's now his backup 8 years later.
Now, if you remember, that was one end of that one branch. Do you remember the other end of that branch?
I saw Robin Kovac, Brett Morrison, and Ryder Korzak.
There's your boy, Ryder Korzak. That exactly. I'm sitting there going, "Oh, okay, wait, Ryder Korzak. He's a Rangers
By the
guy."
way, if you want to have your mind blown, watch the Rick Nash trade tree video that Steve Dangle did, and count the number of players in that trade tree that have played for the Rangers since.
Yeah, actually, I think I remember that
because it's Nash and then Buchnevich. And then, of course, the players that went the other way, Dubinsky, Eriksson, Anisimov. But then on the Columbus end, you also have Artemi Panarin, Tyler Mott, Adam McQuaid, Eric Ciccolini, Morgan Barron, Hunter Skinner, Tyler Wall. It's such a wild trade tree. And he brushes over most of those names because, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. But as a Rangers fan, that trade tree video is very interesting to watch.
Yeah, those both actually, that one and the McDonough one. The McDonough one actually looks a little bit better than what it seemed like. But still waiting to see what happens with Nils Lundqvist, which actually, Steven, before I get into any other questions or anything, where does exactly Nils Lundqvist fit on this team for the future now?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it all depends on what the Rangers want to do in the next 12 months. How are they going to address the elephant in the room? They need the cap space to sign Lafreniere and Miller to extensions. And whatever money comes off the books in terms of cap penalties and $3.4 million is not going to be enough to cover that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you trade a guy like Lindgren, it's not going to be enough to cover that. So I'm still convinced that Jacob Trouba is going to waive his no-move clause in 2023 to be traded to either Detroit or Dallas. And the Rangers are going to free up cap space that they need to sign Hedel, Lafreniere, and Miller to extensions. And by doing so, they have to move someone up the lineup. And that's why I think they'll hold on to Lundqvist. I think a year from now, we will see a blue line that consists of Fox, Miller, Schneider, Lindgren, Jones, and Lundqvist in whatever shape, whatever combinations you can make out of that. Maybe they trade a guy like Jones or Lundqvist for another young defenseman that might be a better fit strategically, but I don't think they're going to get rid of Lundqvist just to get rid of him.
Now, it's funny because there's one guy I thought you were going to mention and you didn't mention him because I thought Matthew Robertson was going to get in there.
Matthew Robertson could make it, but he's still too far away to even project him in the lineup. You know, this is a kid that I like, don't get me wrong, but he was told by the team to go to prospect camp when guys like Jones and Lundqvist were not told to go to prospect camp. So that already puts them ahead of Robertson. So he has to outperform those two to even get a chance for a call-up. Because right now, you're probably going to have Lindgren and Fox as your first pair. Then you're going to have Jones and Trouba as your second pair. And then your third pair is going to be Schneider with either Hayek, God save us all.
Oh, God, yeah.
Or Jarrett Tenorti, which I think is unlikely, or one of Jones or Lundqvist. And Jones and Lundqvist can both play the left side, so they'll just go with whatever the best fit is. Robertson, like I said, Robertson has to outperform both Jones and Lundqvist to make the team. That's not easy.
I just find it funny, by the way, I've said this numerous times. One of my life goals, always, every single day, is to never be somebody who they see you, someone sees you, and they just roll their eyes the way that we just did when we mentioned Libor Hayek's name. It was just, it's just.
I was in Hartford for a Wolfpack game last November when Libor Hayek was playing there on a conditioning stint. And the interesting thing was, I was meeting up with some fans who were waiting outside the arena to maybe get some autographs, and I was trying to meet up with Patrick Kodorenko. And one by one, the cars came out of the garage. Libor Hayek was driving the most expensive car. Yeah. Look, nothing against Libor Hayek, but this guy just doesn't make this team better when he's on the ice.
And it's sometimes I used to joke around with Phil for a while about it's like the Tool song, I know the pieces fit. I just know this one doesn't. I can tell you that one right now. And I'd
rather have a defenseman who takes a risk and makes a dangerous play than to have a guy like Libor Hayek who's just indecisive all the time.
Yeah. And the worst decision in any sporting event is indecision.
Yeah.
So that's what I've always told. At least you can make a bad decision and try to recover from it.
Yeah.
You make no decision. By the time you even make a decision, it's over.
Yeah.
So I used to tell that to a defenseman I used to play with all the time. I think he was 16 when he was growing up. He was one of my friend's kids. But
he was 16 when he was growing up? I think we were all 16 when we were growing up.
Oh, no, but I mean, I was like 26.
Okay.
He was playing on my men's team with us.
I will remind you of someone said, "Oh, he was just a kid when he was growing up." Yeah, we all were.
Yeah, that is right. We all were. Would you rather have Hedel than Lindgren? Our man is asking. He's an RFA too next year.
That's a tough one. I would rather keep Hedel over Lindgren because I don't feel comfortable committing to Lindgren long term because it reminds me too much of the Dan Girardi drama we had with his contract.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Philip Hedel, probably he's younger, of course, about a year and a half, but I think Hedel will age better than Ryan Lindgren. I like Ryan Lindgren. I think he's a warrior on the ice. Mm-hmm. He really brings what this team needs, but If the decision is trading him or signing him for 8 years, I'd trade him.
Yeah, especially when you said that word 8. That's what makes me go.
If you can sign him for 4 years, I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. If you can sign him until he's like 30, 31, where you would trade him at age 29, I'm all for it. But if you are going to sign him long term, that's just a problem waiting to happen. Because players like Lindgren do not age well. We saw it with Girardi, we saw it with Dubinsky, we saw it with Callahan. Players that play that physical do not age well, which is why the Rangers drafting those physical players now, when they already have Kravtsov and Kakko and Jones and Fox and Lundqvist in the system, makes a lot of sense, because those players, when they come into the league later on at a young age, their peaks will be around the same time as those technically gifted players.
By the way, Steven, I got to ask you about this, because you were mentioning Twitter before and stuff, and I had a rant about this 2 weeks ago. I still haven't segmented this video off, but I actually have the graphic up here. That's why I want to ask you about this. And the question was from this account: what player leaving the New York Rangers was hardest on you? And as you could see my reply, and you probably read it, it still baffles me how Buchnevich is even on this list. And by the way, the Matt Zuccarello thing still is 66%. It just boggles my mind. Marc Messier leaving in 97 was devastating. Absolutely devastating. And Rattel probably right after that, because he was traded to a hated rival. But
I think these polls really show the age of your it really shows your demographic, shows the age of your target audience. When Zuccarello wins that poll by 2/3 of the vote
on a rebuilding team, the team announced they were going to rebuild. They had to trade him.
I know Zuccarello was popular. I get it, but I was more like the last time I was really upset about a player leaving was in the mid-90s when the Rangers traded Peter Nedved and Sergei Zubov.
Wow. Yeah, for Luc Robitaille and Ulf Samuelsson.
Mm-hmm. And it was mostly because of Zubov, but also a large part because of Peter Nedved, because when I was a kid, he was my favorite player. Mm-hmm. And the reason I liked him is because of the story behind how he got to the NHL. I was always fascinated with the story of him defecting from Czechoslovakia, putting his life at risk, jumping out of a hotel room window in Calgary, and jumping into a car in the middle of the night, driving over the border without knowing what was ever going to happen. I think players like him and Mogilny and Václav Nedomansky deserve more respect than they get for what they did. The way they paved the way for Eastern Europeans now. Anyway.
And also Sergei Fedorov, who defected as well.
But Fedorov was a little older. When you defect at an older age, there's not as much risk. But the Stasny brothers from Czechoslovakia defecting when they were relatively young still, that puts so much pressure on their families. We can do a recording about this for a full hour, just talking about this aspect of the NHL that doesn't get enough exposure. But circling back, I don't really get upset about players being traded away anymore, because I've seen it happen so many times. But if I would have to pick a player over the last 10 years that I wish they wouldn't have traded away, it would not be Zuccarello. It would. I guess Buchnevich would be a bigger issue than trading away Zuccarello, because Zuccarello was not going to be part of this team moving forward. Like you said, they were entering a rebuild, and he just wasn't going to be part of it. And it is what it is, and people just have to move on from it.
And you're right about that. And also, again, if you ask a lot of hockey writers outside of New York, even though Phil will disagree with me, they had to move Buchnevich. You had to open up spots for Kakko and Lafreniere and move them ahead. And you're going to hinder their development. And what are you going to get him for one more year? He wasn't going to sign a 1-year deal.
My only issue with the Buchnevich trade is that the reasons they traded him were not addressed.
I agree with that.
Because
you don't move up Kravtsov.
So first of all, they didn't get fair value because they got a 4th liner and a 2nd round pick. Second, they didn't use the cap space that they cleared up until they got to the deadline. And third, we still had a season where Semi Blay and Dryden Hunt were in the top 6.
Yeah.
So
and again, I agree with you on that, especially when, and again, it's another thing Phil was pointing out. Back in November when Kakko was with them, he had 7 points in 9 games with Strome and Panarin. And also, let's be honest, Artemi Panarin is basically the second line center of the Rangers. So whoever Ryan Strome is with, it's sort of like who's the backup goalie behind Henrik Lundqvist and now Igor Shesterkin? Oh, I can answer that. It's Benoit Allaire. Because I could bring in a mannequin and Benoit Allaire can get a 900 save percentage out of him, except for Alexander Georgiev, because that by the way, how Colorado thinks he's a number 1 is beyond me. That's a different story.
I think Georgiev is a better goalie when he plays regularly than when he plays sporadically.
All right. Well, we're going to see about that. He's gonna get plenty of ice time.
When Shesterkin was out injured for 4 weeks, his save percentage was .939, I think. So if he can channel that kind of performance by being a regular starter for Colorado, they can win another cup. I don't think Georgiev is a worse goalie than Darcy Kemper.
And by the way, Arman's mentioning Lindgren. I like Lindgren more because a Leach needs a Bookaboom.
That's fine. That's fine. Then your goal should be to find the next Ryan Lindgren, not extend the current one.
That's where the hard part is, because you get a guy like Dan Girardi whose body was clearly breaking down. And I've said this before, Steven. There was 3 guys that played similar styles, 2 defensemen and a forward, and the Rangers were going to pay Ryan Callahan. They backed out of it because he wanted a no-move clause. Then they gave a no-move clause to Dan Girardi, and then they did the same thing a year later to Marc Staal, who has a myriad of injuries on his
Marc Staal had more concussions than functioning eyes at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, granted, Marc Staal is still playing in the league right now. Marc Staal, a great player. I would have let him walk. I've said that before. I'll say it again. And I would have finished the 2015 season with him because the Rangers were still going for the Stanley Cup. People got to remember, when you go for the Stanley Cup, you don't sit back. Like, I hear everybody saying this right now when it comes to Johnny Gaudreau. Oh, they didn't get anything for Johnny Gaudreau, but they were going for the Stanley Cup. That's how good that team was.
The Columbus Blue Jackets going all in the final year of Panarin there. They traded for Dzingel. They traded for Duchesne. They went for it. Look, I like Lindgren. It's not about who I like more. It's about what is going to benefit the team more. And if we don't have a salary cap, we're not having this discussion.
Exactly. There isn't a discussion about Buchnevich.
The salary cap changes everything. The salary cap complicates the way you build a team. Because people ask me, why are we signing Jimmy Vesey and not Tyler Mott? Well, Jimmy Vesey signing for $750K does not affect our ability to sign Tyler Mott, because Tyler Mott wants $2 million. Jimmy Vesey, if he doesn't make the team, that salary can be buried in the AHL completely. You can bury up to $1.1 million for every contract that's in the AHL. So any contract for $1.1 million or below does not count against the cap as long as that player is in the AHL. The players that are affecting our ability to sign Tyler Mott are guys like Ryan Reeves. And Ryan Lindgren, let's just circle back to this. I like Ryan Lindgren. I think he's going to have some great years as a Rangers defenseman. I just don't want to commit to him long term.
Which is totally fine. And even a 4-year deal is fine too.
Yeah.
And
if you think Ryan Lindgren is integral to this team's success, then go out there and find the next Ryan Lindgren. I think we already have the next Ryan Lindgren.
Is that Matthew Robertson?
No, it's actually he's right-handed, but I think Braden Schneider plays a similar style to Ryan
Oh,
Lindgren.
I think he's going to be better than Brian Lindgren. I think he's going
Yeah,
to anchor one of those lines. Like there, you look at the Rangers defense, potentially speaking. I think Schneider, Miller, and I mean obviously Fox, who's already won the hardware.
hmm.
I mean, although now they're giving. I don't know how much we should take credit in the Norris Trophy, given now that a guy can have 96 points and be the highest scorer by far on his own team, and he's going to lose the Norris Trophy because it was just time to give it to Cale Makar. That's my opinion on that. Is it a little bit of a
Yeah,
hot take?
trophies in the NHL that are based on voting are usually given based on reputation, not on merit.
Right. But Yossi should have won this year. That's what I just think.
Well, I still maintain that Shesterkin should have won the Hart because he put up a higher save percentage than any other goalie in the last 10 years, despite scoring being the highest since 1996.
If I recall correctly, was it your tweet that said there's only been 10 players with goalies over save percentages over 930, as you just said, or 935, and there's been like 20 guys to score 60 goals? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
Look,
the
and
rare
don't get me
thing
wrong,
is Durkin.
it is very impressive that Austin Matthews scored 60 goals. I'm not taking anything away from that.
No one is.
But it happened in a season where Chris Kreider scored 50, where JT Miller had 90 plus points, where Nazem Kadri had a career year, where Johnny Gaudreau had 90 points at even strength alone. I'm not saying it's not impressive what Austin Matthews did, but in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the season, scoring was the highest since 1996. We had 17 players scoring 40 goals or more, which is the most since 1996. And in that season, with scoring historically high, Igor Shesterkin still put up a save percentage above 930.
And the goals against below, I mean, it was 2.05, was it?
Yeah, something like that. I don't really care about goals against average because that doesn't really tell you much. But
In this case, it does.
Yeah,
That
but
team
save
wasn't tight
percentage.
defensively.
Yeah, but save percentage, Igor Shesterkin should have won the Hart. He was robbed.
Yeah. And at that, I mean, I still go back to
and
Henrik Lundqvist being robbed in 2013 for the Vezina.
and I think it's really stupid when people say a goalie should never win the Hart because goalies have the Vezina trophy.
Agreed. Keep
That's
going.
such bullshit. That's such bullshit. The MVP is not the award for the best forward.
Or how about this? The MVP not only is not they're like, oh, they got their own award. So what? So do defensemen. So defensemen don't deserve a shot at it. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. They also got the Lindsay Award. Is that only meant for a forward as well? Just come on.
Anyway, I'm happy for Shesterkin that he won the Vezina, and hopefully he wins the Hart in the coming seasons.
All right. We're at 4:41 right now, Eastern time in New York. You want to go for another 4 more minutes, Steven?
I'm good.
Okay. I mean, worst case is 5 o'clock because you know how I try to I cap it.
I know. I when you say 4 more minutes, I go, it's probably going to be 18.
Because what always happens is somebody always gets me on a rant or something like that. Or how about this? When we were going to sign off on Wednesday, Anthony wanted to do an honest press conference for the first time in a while. And I still go back to that article from The Athletic from Arthur Staple that Alexei Lafreniere, they were asking him where he wants to play. He said he was just simply saying, I'll play wherever they tell me to play. Yeah. So that's what it might not be his attitude for real, but that's what his media training is saying. That's exactly the way you should respond to that. Doesn't matter. Just when you call my number, I'll go in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I still expect more things out of Kakko this year. How do you think, since I actually have you right now, how do you think the scratch at the end of the season, does that motivate him?
I don't know. I don't know how much it affects a player. I wonder how much it affects the relationship between the player and the coach, though.
Well, supposedly they've talked and said how much of a
Yeah.
respect they have for Kako and how much they think he's a big part.
Mm-hmm.
And look, when you're desperate, you're facing elimination. Sometimes you can make the right move. Sometimes you can make the wrong move. But
yeah, Gerard Galland never finished the third season as a head coach with an NHL team, by the way.
And you worry about that, yes.
Look, he was fired midway through the third season in Columbus, in Florida, and in Vegas.
Unjustified, arguably, with two of those. Definitely with Columbus, though.
Whether it's justified or not, it happened to him 3 times out of 3.
Yeah.
For me, that's enough for it to be to be worth mentioning.
Tommy's asking you right here, by the way, Steven. What local IIHF World Junior prospect has the greatest ability or ready to shine in this tournament?
What does he mean by local?
I think Rangers, Islanders, Devils prospect.
Oh. Oof. I think to really shine this tournament, it's going to be either Othmann or Dufour.
Possibly both. Because they're playing with each other.
Exceeding expectations, I think Adam Shakura is going to surprise a lot of people.
Nice. I like it. What do you think? How did Roddy play in the last? Sorry, I went to his other name. How did Ratu play? Atu Ratu. How did he play in the? I don't have no problem with rolling R's, but how did Ratu play in his last World Juniors?
Wait, do you mean the one that was canceled or the one?
I thought he played the year before too, right?
Yeah, let me quickly check that for you.
Okay. Tommy, it's okay. And by the way, one of the guys we talked about, Luke Hughes.
I think Luke Hughes is for Team USA together with Brett Berard. If you're going to watch Team USA games, those two will be fun to watch. If you're from the, is it called the Tri-State? Can you explain something to me? What is the Tri-State area?
The Tri-State area, whenever they refer to it as the Tri-State area, it's New York, and Long Island are both the same thing, but New Jersey and Connecticut is the third state that they usually put that in, even though Connecticut also is considered New England.
Yes, Connecticut is part of New England.
Right. So
when I think Tri-State area, I always thought it was New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania.
No, we've always referred to it New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut.
Okay.
But let me see whether or not I'm actually wrong on the definition, but that's what I understood.
It wouldn't surprise me, Mark.
It would not surprise me, but I always heard Tri-State. But
I always hear it in commercials.
Yeah, good. I am right. They didn't redefine it like the Zodiac.
Okay.
There's now a new Zodiac symbol.
Like those the Cars for Kids commercials and Carmel and Celino and Barnes injury attorneys 800-888-8888. It's still stuck in my head. In 5 years. When you watch those commercials at night, it really gets in your head.
Yeah, for us, we use New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, but then again, Philadelphia, the metropolitan area will cover parts of Philadelphia, New Jersey, and Delaware. The greater Boston area has parts of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. Pittsburgh area, it's Jesus.
So everyone has their own definition. Okay.
Right, and it blends into 3 different states, so that's where it is. So probably like Western Connecticut, they consider that. Yeah, don't wait, call 8. Which every time I ever watch one of those Celino and Barnes commercials, I always have to remember, wait a minute, which one of them is still alive?
Yeah,
because one of them died.
I think Celino is still alive.
I think it's Barnes is the one that's
or the Barnes.
Yeah, because he looks different. Celino looks exactly the same.
So there's and then there's the Carmel commercial of the private limo service.
Oh yeah,
That's
the one where the guy, the Uber driver, grabs the girl's butt.
Does he? 666.
And it said, yeah, go. I think there was one where it was, I think it was Carmel that was like, don't you want a ride service that's not trying to pick you up? And you're like, all right.
Okay.
So
And then,
you know what?
and
It's
then of
effective.
course,
It's
and then
all
of
good.
course the legendary Cars for Kids commercial that everyone remembers because that'll never get out of your head.
Thanks, Arman.
No, Atodatu, I think he really wants to have a good outing this year because he wasn't playing well in his first full World Juniors. I think the expectations were really high back then. You know, he was expected to be a first round pick. Was it 2021?
Yeah, they were talking about him potentially being like a guy that goes either top 10 or in that area.
Yeah.
And he dropped
It's
all the way
crazy
to the
how this
second round.
always seems to happen with Finnish prospects, doesn't it? Because Brad Lambert is the same. Brad Lambert was projected top 5 in his draft class, and he was drafted late in the first round by the Winnipeg Jets with the pick that they got for Andrew Copp from the Rangers.
Which I still think is a good deal no matter what.
I will look. I don't judge that trade on whoever the Winnipeg Jets picked with it.
That's
because
just luck.
Same with the Jacob Trouba trade. I don't look at the Jacob Trouba trade and think we gave up Neil Pionk and Ville Heinola. Because I know from conversations I've had that one of the targets the Rangers had with that pick was Niels Höglander, who went to the Vancouver Canucks in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
So the Rangers would not have drafted Ville Heinola if they would have held on to the 20th overall pick in 2019. Anyway, I'm getting off topic here. It's been almost 2 hours, so
yeah, we've actually covered all this. We're not going too much longer.
Yeah, if there are any questions, I'll answer them. But yeah, we talked about almost every team. Kalle Väisänen is one we haven't mentioned yet, by the way.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
4th round pick last year for the Rangers, 2021. He exceeded expectations, in my opinion, by playing most of the season in Liga when he was expected to play under 20. He'll be playing for the World Juniors for Team Finland. A good, strong body, similar to Khmelars, that he goes into the corners, has really good vision too. He had a couple of assists in Liga this past season where he kind of reminded me of Derek Brassard, who Derek Brassard sometimes had these no-look passes, like he had eyes in the back of his head. And Väisänen has done that too. I think Väisänen is a creative player, but he doesn't do it too often. So
you know what? It wouldn't be a session with you on here if I didn't ask you about a guy that I constantly ask you about, which is Carl Hendrickson. Is he finally going to spend more time in North America this year?
Well, he's actually eligible to play in Hartford this season. So
there you go.
Because he wasn't eligible due to the transfer agreement. So to quickly explain the transfer agreement, players drafted outside the first round are not eligible to be assigned to the minor league in the first season of their entry-level contract, unless they have turned 22.
Okay, yes. Yeah, because there was a Shakura, I think you were mentioning that with, right?
Adam Shakura, same thing. If a player is drafted outside the first round, is younger than 22 years old, and still has a contract in Europe, he cannot be assigned to the minor league.
By the way, in our poll, William DeFore actually made a little bit of a comeback. Brennan Othmann is the guy that everyone is looking forward to seeing at 57%. DeFore at 22, Luke Hughes at 15, and Will Cooley at 5. So, bit of better results. I mean, Othmann was dominating that for a while. So
as he should, not.
But I mean, I would love to see, like I said, I was talking to you about this before because I always try to do a Marc on the road thing and trying to figure out where I'm going. Although, of course, everybody keeps asking me about going 9,000 different places in golf trips. So, and the life of the bartender, I'm able to do that, but I never have time to do anything else. But I would love to try to catch a game with the in Flint, seeing Othmann playing, and then also seeing a Red Wings game because that would be cool. Seeing Little Caesars Arena for the first time out there.
By the way, do you want to hear a bartender joke?
Absolutely.
What did Godzilla say when he ordered a Manhattan at a bar?
What?
Wait, that's it? Where are all the screaming people?
All right, I like it. I like it. I mean, I always think about that joke about I went to a bar and I said, "Hey, so what do you suggest for what drink you suggest for me?" Bartender said, "How about a grasshopper?" So he made me a grasshopper and I drank it. It's actually really good. And then I walked down the block, and as I'm walking down the block, I saw a grasshopper, and I looked at the grasshopper and said, "You know, they got a drink named after you?" And they said, "Really, a drink named Irving?" So, uh,
That's a bad one.
that's a terrible one. That's
Bad.
that was awful. There's so many other ones that I have over the years. Jacob Trouba, by the way, that contract that's just an absolute albatross, and you're right about that because I think the Rangers ever have to move on from him, they're going to have to try to figure out
Well,
exactly.
to talk about Trouba being traded, back in 2019, PK Subban was traded from Nashville to New Jersey with a $9 million cap hit for 2 second-round picks and 2 players with no salary retention.
Yeah, and at that time there were a lot of high salaries,
And I think that's going to be the package the Rangers are looking for: 2 second-round picks, a roster player, and maybe a B-level prospect. And I think a team like Dallas, where there will be trying to replace John Klingberg, or maybe Detroit, where they want someone to bolster their blue line. Of course, they have guys like Philip Ronek and Moritz Seider, but a guy like Trouba would definitely solidify that blue line, and they have the cap space to do it.
As I'm wearing my Big Apple hockey shirt right now. One of the two that I had made up. Still working at trying to get more of these and trying to figure out the right ones to do. All right. Actually, you know what, Steven? We're gonna go 5 minutes short of 5 today. So because what time is it out there for you?
9:55 p.m.
Aye. All right. Well, I mean that is a little bit late, but still good. All right. So everybody, by the way, thanks very much. This was Steven's brainchild to come with me and do a prospect show. I thank him very much, and Rangers Review and Wardy and NYM for the Mets. Let's go Mets, Tyler. Come on, let's go Mets. And it's a great thing that we did this today because this is the one area I'm not the best at with prospects. I wait till they hear and then I kind of let them take a look and then I can do my statistical analysis from there. Although I do have to tell you, when people want to say that Chris Kreider isn't going to score 30 goals next year, I stop. I say, nope, he's scoring 30. He's getting easily 30. I noticed a huge change in his game. I still have to make that video breaking it down, but there's a lot of great things I can't wait for this season. We still have, let's see, it's August 7th, 6 more weeks until we still have training camps and preseason opening. I can't wait for that. Well, by the way, Steven, do you know when you're coming back to the States to see a game?
Yeah, I'm flying in, I think on September 23rd or 24th, and I'll be planning on attending the 3 preseason games at Madison Square Garden.
All right, nice. I'll try to see if I can make it to one.
Yeah.
So,
and I might try to go to the one in New Jersey as well because it's close enough.
Yeah, I haven't been to the Prudential Center yet. I need to get down there at some point. I'm still trying to figure out the away arenas I want to go to this year.
This is gonna sound blasphemous coming from a Rangers fan, but I kind of like Prudential Center.
No, really.
The building itself, the concourse is nice. It's a really nice experience to go to a hockey game.
I'm trying to remember when it opened. Was it 2012 when it opened, or was
Something
it?
Like that.
Yeah, somewhere around that area. I mean, it looks really nice. I can't wait to actually check that out.
Was Berard still with his first wife when they opened it?
Maybe. Actually, I think one of his kids got married yesterday, so I don't know which one that was. But
so I always joke that if they ever make a sitcom about Berard's life, they should call it "How I Banged Your Mother," and it'll be him talking to his niece and nephew.
Oh boy, that would definitely be a good parody we could that he can make for that. So
Kids, Let me tell you a story. The story of how I banged your mother.
I think it's popped a blood vessel in my head. All right. Everybody, there's 20 of you left in the chat right now. Thank you very much for watching us today. And we're still going to have so much more coming this week.
Yeah. So on Twitter, I'll be going back to my schedule of daily tweets, the Rangers, the prospect recap and prospect schedule for the World Juniors. So check it out. They drop every morning at 7 a.m. Eastern.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. And I'll make sure that I'm doing that as soon as I wake up every single day. So that way, because again, that I need to be educated on the prospects all the time. Because after all, like the most scouting a friend of mine did for me once, my friend Timmy Kirkostas, who's a coach down in Florida, and he coached Shane Gostisbehere at one point. But it was he always told me, he's like, there's two prospects I thought that are going to be surefire can't miss players, and for the New York Rangers it was Marc Savard and Chris Kreider, and now at least Chris Kreider, it took him time. Marc Savard, it took him time too, unfortunately. So
Marc Savard was a great player, just not in New York.
Yeah, no, it took him 2 stops.
Yeah,
he was the best player in the Jan Hlavich trade, and that involved Jamie Lundmark. I forgot who Calgary drafted in that.
Oh, I can actually look that up quickly for you.
Okay.
Hold on.
Speaking about which, I think I actually have a Jamie Lundmark card on my desk behind the Manscaped stuff. By the way, for everybody listening still right now, Manscaped, 20% off. Use promo code BAH for 20% off and free shipping. I didn't mention that at all for 2 hours. That's just what you should do for advertisements.
Jamie Lundmark was traded for Jeff Taff. I don't think that's
no. It's the pick that ended up being Jamie Lundmark in 2000, because the Rangers traded Savard. I think that's what we'll look up right now. We'll go.
Okay. Hold on. Let me look up the Savard trade.
I remember that one.
And Marc Savard here. So Marc Savard and the 11th overall pick, which they used on Oleg Saprykin. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For the 9th overall pick, Jamie Lundmark, 77th overall pick, Craig Anderson, and Jan Hlavich.
Yep. And then obviously Hlavich had the great career with the Checkmates. Then he was involved in the Lindros deal, and then he came back to the Rangers eventually. I still think Radek Dvorak was the best player on that line. I know you're talking about Peter Nedved, but I loved Radek Dvorak. But then again, everybody's entitled to their wrong opinion, right, Steven? So it's all right. But then again, like you said, there's Marc Savard was just a hell of a player. It took him go to Atlanta and then eventually finding, I think he played with Slava Kozlov and Ilya Kovalchuk, and then eventually went to Boston, where he really blossomed into a player. So sometimes it just takes time. You got to find the right situation.
Yeah. By the way, Craig Anderson, who was picked with that draft pick in '99, was drafted again in 2001. There are some really interesting stories about players being drafted twice. One is Jared Stoll and Matthew Lombardi, who were drafted by the Oilers and the Flames. Then they weren't signed, and then 2 years later they were drafted by the opposite team. I always find that one funny.
Wow.
But my favorite story of a player being drafted twice is the legend of Tim Brent. Do you remember Tim Brent?
Oh no, go right ahead.
Tim Brent, born March 10th, 1984 in Cambridge, Ontario in Canada, was drafted in the second round in 2002, 37th overall by the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. Tim Brent refused to sign with the Ducks in 2004, so he re-entered the draft, where he was picked in the third round by the Anaheim Ducks.
All right, look, dude, we're taking you again. Just you're gonna have to sign this time.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder what went through that draft war room.
We're not letting you go. Here's the same offer we got you a couple of months ago.
Hey, gee, there were definitely like stalker girls or that would love for that opportunity at some point.
He ended up playing 15 games for them, scoring 1 goal before going to the Pittsburgh Penguins, Chicago Blackhawks, Toronto Maple Leafs, and then finishing his NHL career with the Carolina Hurricanes.
Wow. Although I do have to say, I think my favorite story in general about a player drafted twice is Bo Jackson. That's in the NFL, where he was so irate with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they gave him a flight, and he said, "This isn't gonna hurt my chances of playing baseball with Auburn, right?" Like, no, don't worry. And then it ended up getting him ineligible to play baseball with Auburn that year.
Mm.
And he said to him, "If you draft me, you will waste that draft pick." And he got drafted number 1 and never played for them. And then later on went back.
The most memorable Bo Jackson moment outside of the NFL is actually a Deion Sanders inside the park home run.
Yeah.
Deion Sanders hit it.
That was the Yankee Stadium.
Hit it inside the park home run, and the reason it happened is because Bo Jackson missed the ball at second base. If you go to YouTube and you look up Deion Sanders inside the park home run, you'll see a video.
All right, I'll have to check that one out. Yeah. That's amazing because that means he hit it that low. Because also I remember Mike Piazza had a few home runs that are like that, where it basically missed the shortstop and went over the fence. But my favorite Bo Jackson story is Harold Reynolds rounding. He thought he was going to score easily. At one hops on the plate, he gets tagged out. He turns around, there's Bo Jackson pointing to him in the outfield. That guy was the greatest athlete I've ever seen, and still could be. I don't know, but we'll see about that. All right. Once again, everybody, thank you very much for joining us at Big Apple Hockey, and thank you very much to our guest, Statboy Steven, who's always great and generous with his time with us. Thank you very much, Steven, and we'll see you guys soon enough. Wednesday, whole new show yet again, and keep your eyes open. There's gonna be some surprises.
All right. It was fun. It was fun being on your show again, and looking forward to the next time already.
Yeah. All right. Take care, everybody.